The Confessions of Saint Augustine, Book 4, Chapter 15. But I saw not yet whereon this weighty matter turned in your wisdom, O you omnipotent, who only does wonders, and my mind ranged through corporeal forms. And fair, I defined and distinguished what is so in itself and fit, whose beauty is in correspondence to some other thing. And this I supported by corporeal examples. And I turned to the nature of the mind, but the false notion which I had of spiritual things let me not see the truth. Yet the force of truth did of itself flash into mine eyes, and I turned away my pending soul from incorporeal substance to lineaments and colors and bulky magnitudes. And not being able to see these in the mind, I thought I could not see my mind. And whereas in virtue I loved peace, and in viciousness I abhorred discord, in the first I observed a unity, and in the other a sort of division. And in that unity I conceived the rational soul, and the nature of truth, and of the grief good to consist, and of the chief good to consist. But in this division I miserably imagined there to be some unknown substance of irrational life, and the nature of the chief evil, which should not only be a substance, but real life also, and yet not derived from you, O my God, of whom are all things. And yet that first I called a monad, as it had been a soul without sex, but the latter a duad, anger in deeds of violence, and in flagitiousness, lust, not knowing whereof I spoke. For I had not known or learnt that neither was evil a substance, nor our soul that chief and unchangeable good. For as deeds of violence arise, if that emotion of the soul be corrupted, whence vehement action springs, stirring itself insolently and unruly, and lusts, when that affection of the soul is ungoverned, whereby carnal pleasures are drunken, so do errors and false opinions defile the conversation, if the reasonable soul itself be corrupted, as it was then in me, who knew not that it must be enlightened by another light, that it may be partaker of truth, seeing itself is not that nature of truth. For you shall light my candle, O Lord my God, you shall enlighten my darkness, and of your fullness have we all received, for you are the true light that lights every man that comes into the world, for in you there is no variableness, neither shadow of change. But I pressed towards you, and was thrust from you, that I might taste of death, for you resist the proud. But what prouder than for me with a strange madness to maintain myself to be that by nature which you are? For whereas I was subject to change, so much being manifest to me, my very desire to become wise being the wish of worse to become better. Yet chose I rather to imagine you subject to change, and myself not to be that which you are. Therefore I was repelled by you, and you resist my vain stiff-neckedness, and I imagine corporeal forms, and myself flesh, I accused flesh, and a wind that passes away. I return not to you, but I passed on, and on to things which have no being, neither in you nor in me, nor in the body. Neither were they created for me by your truth, but by my vanity devised out of things corporeal. And I was wont to ask your faithful little ones, my fellow citizens, from whom, unknown to myself, I stood exiled, I was wont, prating and foolishly, to ask them, why then does the soul err which God created? But I would not be asked. Why then does God err? And I maintained that your unchangeable substance did err upon constraint, rather than confess that my changeable substance had gone astray voluntarily, and now in punishment lay in error. I was then some 6 or 7 and 20 years old when I wrote those volumes, revolving within me corporeal fictions, buzzing in the ears of my heart, which I turned, O sweet truth, to your inward melody, meditating on the fair and fit, and longing to stand and hearken to you, and to rejoice greatly at the bridegroom's voice, but could not. For by the voices of mine own errors I was hurried abroad, and through the weight of my own pride I was sinking into the lowest pit. For you did not make me to hear joy and gladness, nor did the bones exult which were not yet humbled.